Now this morning we have a lot of multitasking to do. I wanted to see how these parts that we painted yesterday are drying up, and they look fine, by the way. Oh yeah, they're going to be nice. I always like to look at the day before's work and make sure. We got one fairing up here in the laundromat drying. That looks like it's going to be just beautiful. We got two, and by the way, I don't know if you can see that color. That is one beautiful color there. Boy, that is really nice. We have, in addition, another fairing. Just when you thought there was enough fairings, this one dried up nice. Beautiful. The parts with the decals are now covered with clear. Mark was here last night and brought by the parts we need to make patterns for the striping. And I bought a dozen cans of white Rust-Oleum. I have a big house project I'm working on, painting the pergola over the fish pond. So, there's just things to do within things to do, and we got to get going. It's a rainy day. This is a good project for a rainy day. Now, one of today's projects, maybe the first one even, I want to lay out the stripe that goes on the seat and the fairing. Now, on this bike, I have a spare seat that has the stripe. And when I laid that out, and it's on our channel, has I think 800 or 900 videos now. You can go backward on it and find that. Laying out this stripe and getting it to match the tail looks real easy when you see somebody else do it. When you go to do it, you realize it's really got to be right. If that stripe is off or these box corners are a little fuzzy, it really looks terrible. So I'm going to try to put all the details on this video of how I laid out the stripe for Mark's project, which is going to be a totally different bike, a different stripe. And the Yamaha racing people call these the Yamaha ladders from the old racing days. I kind of like the look. In fact, I've even thought that at some future time I'd do another one of these. I really do like this paint job. I just thought I'd mention this in passing. This pergola that Mike Kajeski made for our pond is now about 18 years old, and it's due for a paint job, and I think I've been wire brushing it down and little by little, and the Rust-Oleum seems like it's going to give us a couple more extra years before we really have to do something. So what Mark brought over was two boxes that have bodywork that has the stripe. Let's see what this looks like here. And of course it's decals, and we're going to have to replicate this. So what I guess I should do, take the smaller of the two parts, always start with the smaller of the two parts, out to the workbench, and I want to make patterns. I want to make like a map. Where the dimension for this stripe starts, the thickness of the stripe, in the back, how far it comes from the top and bottom, and so we're only going to use this. Now see, they did this with tape. This is all done with, well, stickers, I guess is the better word. I don't want to use stickers. We're going to do this all with tape. But we're going to try to do it really, really accurately as possible. But the most important thing is we need to connect the two pieces. It sounds like this would be a lot easier than it is. Because if these lines aren't really parallel, if they're kind of crooked, it's really not going to look as good as we'd like. Now I like to start, these parts are all dusty and dirty. Just clean them up a little bit. Just makes the pattern making that much easier. I like to work with clean stuff if possible. I do take a bath once a month, whether I need it or not. Anyway, that's just before I make my map. And let me describe. Now, I've been doing this for a lot of years. I've probably built over 200 model airplanes that had similar paint jobs, all intricately done with tape, never with stickers, almost never, and very few decals, but these intricate paint jobs, and then replicating the mirror image. The way to do this that I think is the most appropriate, and by the way, I'm looking at the pearl paint here. This looks like we're going to have a good match on the pearl paint, is to actually get a piece of paper and start making my dimensions and start getting this as accurate as possible. Now, I asked Mark, and I don't know if he did it or not, to carefully measure these stripes, and we need to do this with thin line tape. The reason you need to do it with thin line tape is this is thicker here than it is here. This is opening up like a funnel. So if we were to try to do this with one piece of tape, well, sadly enough, that wouldn't really work. But I want to lay out what I think is going to be the easiest way to do this is going to be to lay out this stripe here and this stripe here. Actually lay the whole thing out with 1/8 inch tape first. But again, I need to do this in my mind here. The most important thing is to get these, by making a pattern, I'll have an angle on each one because the angle changes. As it comes back here, it fans down. It doesn't look like that would be hard to do, but it is, trust me, to get it to look exactly the way we want it to. And don't forget, ours will be paint covered with clear. It will not be. These are stickers. You can peel these up with your finger or a heat gun if you wanted to. So a little bit of an upgrade. Now a quick funny story as I'm making up my map, and making up the map will be just pretty redundant, but I wanted to share this as a good, this is something I think is really funny. Karen found, she's always looking for ways for us to increase our net equity. So she came up with this great idea. We're watching TV this morning and we see that they're selling jeans, these wealthy things that cater to the wealthy people. Jeans that look like you worked in a factory or mud or something. The jeans have the stains built right in, and they're fake stains, of course. They did it with an airbrush or something. And they're charging $4,500 for a pair of jeans. So Karen looked in my jean drawer and she said, all of your jeans, they have real paint stains and real grease stains. They must be worth a fortune. Well, if we get rich, I'll let you know. So I wanted to share this. That jean thing is true, by the way. This is one way to do this. And I'm going to see if this is practical or not so practical. I'm going to lay out one edge right here. Again, there's a lot of ways to do these trims and the mirror images that are involved. This is certainly one way. And I can flip it. I'll just make the reverse piece for the other side. And this will be blue. This will be white, red, white, blue. Well, black in this case. Is it black? No, it's blue. I didn't have my coffee yet, so I'm a little under the weather. So having this piece of tape will be part of our map. And I think you can figure out that I can lay that onto the new part, and that'll help me in laying it out. But I will make a map with all the measurements on it, only for myself, only so I don't have any chance that I'm going to get this wrong. Now, knowing various ways of creating a pattern, if we were not replicating this, if we were just putting this on randomly, well, it probably wouldn't matter. But what I'm looking at is this dimension, and I want to measure it accurately. This line runs not parallel to the crease, so that's going to be something we have to take into account. We have to take into account it gets thinner at the back, it gets wider at the front, and it is not parallel to this line. So having these tape maps, they're going to be critical to laying out this part. Now these are all the rough dimensions, but the first absolute thing to lay out is going to be this white stripe is going to set the whole stripe. So we're laying this stripe out, and because this goes up and down a curve, it gets bigger in the front. A lot of this is going to be by the eyeball. I really love that. I really love that story about the jeans. The rich people want to have jeans that make it look like they work for a living. I don't know about that. Anyway, I'm looking at the gap in the back. And by the way, whenever you do tape, tape always ends before the curve. The sticker, it's hard to get it to go around, so the factory just ends it. Well, if we were making a custom job, I would wrap that stripe right around, because we can do that with paint conveniently. But they can't do it with stripes. So now I'm going to lay this out in my best of all worlds here. Because we're not making a custom, we're trying to make a replication. So laying out our tape maps, and believe me, when you're doing a model airplane, to get the one wing to be the same as the other wing, it can get difficult, that's for sure. So let's lay this out in such a way, this end's about 1/4 of an inch from the end. 1/8 of an inch, but that's still good. And this is now, what this does, if you picture what's happening, this lays out our 2 end points to where we have to put the tape. So one thing worth noting, Mark bought 1 new roll of tape. We have several rolls of old tape, but on a job like this, hopefully going to be able to use all new tape. And most of these lines are straight lines, which this kind of tape lends itself to doing very well. So the first thing, again, is to lay out that one white stripe. The reason is that one white stripe, that middle stripe, it sets all the other stripes in place. And all we have to do to make it easy for us is get that one pretty much accurate. In fact, that's a bad piece of tape right there. The first roll out is usually has some flaws in it. Try to lay that out nice. Since we're going up and down a curve here, okay, so that's the initial thing. Now, but it's not as easy as it looks. This is not, in fact, where's my razor blade? The issue is, this is thinner at the back than it is at the front. So now we have an overlap. Let me just see how much of an overlap this is ultimately going to be. Oh, it's going to be quite a bit. Okay. So again, I have to account for the fact we're going around a curve here. Now that ultimately, you see that, let me show this up close. It starts with the tape overlapping, but as the stripe gets thicker and thicker and goes around the curve, it's getting wider and wider and wider, so we're going to have to put a third piece of tape in there. If that is on. Now pretty much here, what we want to do is the same thing for the second white stripe. Because again, these 2 stripes are going to set everything else in place. And then we make these patterns. This will be a relatively simple thing to do with office paper or whatever, but laying out these 2 stripes are the foundation of this paint job. Okay, the next step. I know I have the places marked. This is going to be the top of the blue stripe. Again, because it goes around all these curves, I'll bet you any money putting these, if we did this with stickers, getting the stickers to go around, I bet doing that one at the factory was a little bit of a challenge. Okay, this lays out our blue stripe. The key to this is to make a plan, make a map, kind of. In the world of model planes, we always would say that you build it in your head first before you lay it out, because once you start laying tape out, first off, the time and then you're using materials up and whatever, and you can build it in your head over and over again without really too much effort at all. Now it looks like just a wild guess on my part. Because this is an edge, we only have to do this one. This is going to take the blue. Now we have the blue stripe. That's the bottom stripe is laid out. We want to do the same thing at the top. Lay out the, well, we already got the top blue stripe. Now the next thing, look at it and see if we're close. Well, it looks like we are pretty close. It definitely does look pretty good, have to admit. So now we don't need, here's the bottom line, is we don't need these pieces anymore. We could save this now for the other side. And on the other side, of course, I'll make a similar thing, make the exact same thing, in fact, for the other side. And I'll save these. And what I ought to do is I ought to just write on it to identify what it is. And if all else fails, I'll just make a new piece of tape. But, so now we have this part, and I can easily now, I can see from up there that this is going to, in fact, I want to do it with 1/8 inch tape, so I better just get this. See, sometimes you get too cute. I'm trying to, this will only be an edge, so it won't even matter. I used to love to watch in any of the custom car shows when the guys are laying out tape. It always looks so easy. And when you go to do it, oh my God. Okay, so that takes care of that. And again, always use a brand new razor and try not to cut into the paint if possible. That takes care of that. That takes care of that. We can flip the part through this side. And I guess by now you've already figured out that this is going to be a lot of labor. This is going to be probably the better part of a day to lay out these stripes. But it's a rainy day. We can't really paint. So I'm more than happy to get a start on this anyway. Not sure we're going to finish it because, again, we work around so many things. But now we have what I call the boxes. We have all of the boxes, and now I want to get office paper and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make 5 like paper doll patterns and just lay them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that will probably be the easiest part of this job. And this actually is a little bit easier because it's bigger chunks than doing that RD, which was really intricate, and all of the razor edges and everything were really tough to do. And by the way, we're coming up on 800 motorcycle videos, over 1,000 modeling videos. As we come up on 800, when you want to look back into the channel, you can go back into the channel and see the painting of the RD, the rebuilding of the motor. It's all out there. Now, in the world of model planes, this is called making paper dollies. So I've made, because I can pretty much see through. If you have tracing paper, that's real nice. Don't really need it though. And we always would do this to make our pattern. Put a hole right in it with a razor. And I think once you see this video, once you pick up some of these little ideas, I think you could replicate any of these type of paint jobs. I don't think it's real difficult at all. But once you see some of the little tricks, I hope it makes it easier for you. Now, what obviously we have, I've named it S1. It's the side one. It's going to get taped in position as I lay out this stripe. Now I need to, it will set this angle. Then I can figure how many stripes of tape I need to go. I need to make one for this, for this, for this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to make 5 patterns with a hole in the middle that I can put some tape on. Okay, so it's kind of self-explanatory, and these paper patterns don't have to be within 1/1000th of an inch. As I put these pieces in place, I have a little spot here. I can put a small piece of masking tape just to hold them in place. And what that'll allow me to do then is to lay out the stripes. All I need the patterns for is to lay these stripes out in tape. And then that will have set me, when I go to use these on the other side, I'll take the tape off, flip them over, and pretty much do this on the other side. I can mirror image it on the other side. But again, this is just one way of doing it. It's worked for me for over 50 years of painting, and allowed me to have some, I think, some very satisfying days in the paint shop. When this work was done, you know this is a trade that's going to be lost forever in another generation. It's going to all be done by computers. Now, if you start at one end, and I've got a little piece of tape there, The nice part about this is they've used a dimension that we have the tape already cut to that dimension, so we don't have to use multiple layers of tape. That lays out our angle. I can just very gently press that down, hold this piece in position. Now, this is for sure a ton more work than laying on a graphic. But one thing about this, we will not have any wrinkles in it. And I know when we put the clear on this, this is going to be a lot nicer than a factory part would ever be. Because the factory is not going to spend this kind of time and energy to lay this out. No matter how expensive of a bike you have, they have to make money on it. But if you just get how this all works out, the plan, I think you can improvise this into almost any paint job that you can dream up. In fact, this one I don't want to have this way. And a lot of times I find, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos, I see something on YouTube and I say, oh, I can figure out a way to use that to my advantage. Never want to not thank the people that take the time to share some of these things. I saved me a lot of time and energy and money. So, as we get to the back of this, I want to make sure the stripes are still the same. And they're a little bit thinner at the back. So let's see where they get thin. Okay, the first two are this dimension. Then they get a little bit thinner. So I have to, this is where it gets cute. I have to start improvising. How thick are the stripes as we get to the back? Because we don't want this not to look right. And it will be... Now, here's where the ruler comes in. Well, yeah, I don't even need the ruler. This is something I wanted to add to the video. The first one, a full piece of tape. Second stripe tape minus about a 1/16. So, this is relatively easy to do. I take a piece of tape. Roughly cut it. I could do it with just pieces of 1/4 inch tape too, I guess. Let's see if we got it right. Not a little bit too thin. Well, that's the way this works out. So let's see if maybe this way will be easier anyway. 1, 2 1/8. 2 tapes. And depending on how fussy you want to be. Now when I put the second tape on, I can account for that 1/8. There's the 1/8, okay. And again, I have to shorten each one as it goes down. Now one way I know I have the stripes right is I've ended. In other words, if the stripes were too thick, this last piece would go off the end. If I had them too thin, it would be up this way. So this is the thinnest stripe. Then it gets about a 1/16, an 1/8, and it comes right up to full dimension. So we have the taper, we have the stripes, the diminishing thickness of the stripes. Now all that's left is to trim off all the excess tape, pull out the patterns, and see what that looks like. Are we happy with that shape? Now before I go to the next step, I want to take my edge of my fingernail, which I don't have much of a fingernail, and get all the corners to go down. That's an important step so I don't get any paint bleeding under here, especially with the white pearl, because it'll be virtually impossible to touch up the white pearl. And what I did with this, to kind of stack the deck, I put a coat of clear on top of the white pearl, so my tape is resting in cured 2-part clear, not on the white pearl. If it's right directly on the white pearl, it can be a real, it can make funny little indentations into the pearl, which I've found in the 50 years of painting I've been doing. White pearl is you gotta really be careful with that. Anyway, so that lays it out. And as I'm looking at it, I think we've got it. I think that's a real good replication of what we want. The other side of this is pretty much going to be a mirror image. And like I said, I'm going to take all the pieces of this and just take the tape off and flip them over to make a mirror image. So if nothing else, hopefully this will all line up. And as I look at it, it's only a decision now of, do we want to paint the blue first? Of course, either way, you got to do the backmasking. Or I'm guessing if we paint the blue first, and then backmask over the blue and paint the red, yeah, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But that is, to figure out how to do that, if you've never seen how it's done, that should give you some good information. Now, one of the phenomenon of doing this kind of work, you find out that the first one you do really takes a long time. A couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, whatever. Second one will take a little bit less time. Third one will go a little quicker, but you got to guard against the fact, I have to anyway, that you don't want to start trying to do this like it's a race, because what happens is you can trip yourself up, make one mistake in the backmasking or the taping, or pull up some paint or something. It seems like whenever you try to make a race out of it, what happens is in the end it bites you. So I know I have to get the baby in basically in 2 hours. I'm hopefully going to get this piece done in that time. It'll mean I spent about 4 to 5 hours on this one piece. And if I try to rush it and do 2 or 3 parts extra in one day, or try to make a production line out of it or something, the first thing happens is the quality of the work suffers, and then I'm not happy with the result. So this is kind of, because we've done the first panel, doing the second panel now. Where's the panel? Where's the panel? Oh, the wrong panel. Pretty much, and there's no point videotaping it, because basically I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did. Replicate it here, use the parts I already have cut, lay out the sizes, the shapes, the tape. Maybe before the day's over, if things go well, I'll get them both ready for painting the next color. And that would be a reasonable thing to get done. If I thought I'm going to do 8 or 10 or 15 more things, quality's going to suffer. So I hope from watching this video you picked up a couple of tips, a couple of ideas, something you might want to try on your own bike. And since we can't paint it all today, we're going to have to end this right now, and it's pretty much time to go get our grandson. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.